Hickok 45 here. You know, there are a lot of Glock 9mm, lots of different models. Of course, it's always hard to beat this one, isn't it? Yeah, the Glock 19, the standard by which all other firearms are measured. Well, that might be a stretch, but the Glock 19 might be the most popular of the Glock 9mm models. That was plus P HST Federal, by the way, what I've been carrying. I just thought I'd shoot it out. You know, it's good to do once in a while. Let's talk about the models, the 9mm that Glock makes. Now, why am I doing this? Well, it's because I happen to have them all pretty much here, and most of the time I have them all here, but there's one in particular that I don't have very often. It's not mine, so we thought we'd just do kind of a rundown on this. And I'm sorry, I'm not doing this with XDs or XDMs or HKs or Walthers or SIGs or Rugers or any of the others. I just would have way too many gaps with those other firearms. But now with Glock, as you might imagine, got most of them. And so look at all that ugly black Tupperware. Isn't that something? Let's put this one up here too. It's clear now. I shot it dry, and these are all empty chambers. And magazines. These are them, okay? And what I wanted to do is just kind of give you an idea, a rundown, because it is one of the most popular polymer handguns, let's face it. And if you're like me, you know, if someone starts talking about like CZs in the models, I start getting dizzy almost, because I'm not as familiar with them. Well, if you're not familiar with the Glocks, then I can help you a little bit here and lay them out, since we happen to have them all here, all right? So let's put them in order, kind of, by size. That's what I thought we'd do. And what prompted this was the fact that we have the 17L here. We have a video. It may not be posted yet, but we have done a video with it. I had not done one with it. And so you've got the smallest Glock 43, the 26, the Glock 19, the Glock 17, the Glock 34, the Glock 17L, which is the granddaddy lengthwise, you know, pretty much of the Glocks, okay? And they're all 9mm. Now you could go to a 40 and some of the other calibers, and you could have several as well. But I just happen to have all these in 9mm. And I thought maybe some of you hear these numbers and you weren't quite as familiar with how they are size-wise. It was the main thing I wanted to look at, and we'll talk about a couple other things too. We won't make this a 35-minute video. I say that all the time, don't I? So let's start with the smallest and work up and just kind of give you an idea. I'll point them that way so you can kind of see. And now I'll give you the numbers too on the models and everything here as we move on up the line. And you can see how they compare. This first one is the 17L, the longest. It has over 6-inch barrel, just barely over 6 inches. That's pretty long, isn't it? And then the next one here is the, with the same opening there, is the 34, which I think it has like a 5.5, 5 3/4 or something inch barrel. You can see the difference there. They're lined up at the back here. And then you have the Glock 17. So if you thought the 17, that third one, was the biggest Glock, no, it's not. There's some big old Glocks. And then the one next to it here is the fourth one is the Glock 19 I just fired. Then you have the Glock 26. So you see the progression moving downward. Now you notice the 43 on the very end here is the same length as the Glock 26, and grip and everything. It's just that the thickness is different on those, okay? And except for the Glock 43, which is thinner, really all of these are the same thickness, okay? The slides, they're the same thickness. So the biggest difference is in the capacity, the length of the grip, and the length of the barrel and the slide, okay? So you got 17L, you got 34, 17, 19, 26, and then the 43, which hadn't been out all that long. And speaking of that, I guess the 17 was the first one, right? That's all that existed in the Glock universe, in fact, for years. All right, I had one or two of those back when, if you had a Glock, you had a Glock 17. That was the only choice, right? And I don't know if I can actually even do them exactly right chronologically. I think the 19 might have come next. And then I think the 26 and the 27s came out, which was a 40, but this is a 26. And let's see what came out next. Probably the 17L. It may have been some overlap there. It was out pretty early because I had one back in the late 80s. And then the 34 came along, and it kind of cut the market on the 17L to some extent. This is the more popular competition than even the 17L. And then the 43 hasn't been out all that long. Now others, I think I've got all the main sizes of the 9mm. Now I don't have a Glock 18, okay, but it's the same size as the Glock 17. It is the 17 basically, but fully auto capability, select fire. You've seen us shoot one of those, or the 17 converted and everything. And then in the 17L, and maybe even in the 34, I don't think they have maybe had ported barrels at times and that kind of thing, but by and large they're the same size, okay, and same length. I don't think there's been any difference there in length. And then you also, of course, you have some of these chambered in 380, like the 26 that's not available in this country. I forget what the model number is, but it's in other countries they chamber that, and Glock does, in 380. And a lot of people think there's this magical 380 Glock out there that if they just get their hands on one, it's some cool little gun, you know, like this or the 42 or something, but it's in 380. Of course, the 42 is 380, but they don't realize it's just this gun. I don't think they might make it too in the 19 size gun, but those are available in other parts of the planet in 380. But there's nothing special about the size, you know, so they import the 9mm in the 40 and this size gun, okay? So anyway, those are the 6 sizes and basically the 6 firearms that Glock offers in 9mm, at least the ones I'm aware of. You think of another one? I can't. And I thought since we had the 17L here, you know, for a short time, that I would just line them all up here and kind of give you a little bit of a comparison and a rundown on them. I will try not to overdo this here, but now these are the couple that are, you know, for competition primarily. All right, the 34 and the 17L, they're the long ones. Again, there's the difference though. So you may have a 34, a lot of people do, but you know, it's just not as long as that 17L, the long slide. You know, that's kind of a long old gun. And also to help put it in perspective on size, because that's a lot of the focus here, here's a standard 5-inch 1911, all right? And the 34 is the same size, okay? It was designed to be the same size, all right? For competition, you know, an IPSC, it's got to fit in the box to be a stock gun for limited. And 1911, I think they designed the box around a 5-inch 1911, just like this, and they made this firearm the same size. So if you're ever looking at a 34, you pick it up in a gun shop, and it's an illusion, it really is. When I pick this thing up away from the 1911 and I hold it, I think I would have bet money that it's bigger than 1911, but it's not. Okay, so that's the kind of a frame of reference that might help some of you, especially if you're a 1911 aficionado. All right, so you got the long ones, you got the pretty long ones, you got this one that's pretty good size in a 17, and you get down to a 19, and you get down to the 26 and the 43, which are the same size, except the 43 is not quite as thick. Now, just for brief comparison, this is supposed to be about 9mm, but in my pocket I happen to have a 42. You know, if you want to talk about or look at, I guess, virtually every size Glock makes, you know, at least in length. Okay, there you've got them. Now your 45s and your you know, your 40s, and well, your 45s and your 10s are thicker, you know, and then your 45 gap, they're a little thicker slide-wise and all that. But in terms of length, you know, that's pretty much covers it, right? So that one's hot, so I'm gonna put him over there out of the way. I'll stick him back in my pocket later. Okay, a couple other things while I've got him out here too, that makes any of these polymer wonders interesting, these firearms. And it's not just polymer wonders, but the interchangeability of the magazines. If now you can't use a Glock 26 magazine in any of these others, can you? You just can't. Well, it'll go in, but it won't click and it won't work. But you can always use, how shall I say it, the larger firearms magazine in the smaller firearm, except for the 43. It's a different animal. It's a thinner, it's single stack and everything. But you know, these three, the 17L and that one does have ammo. The 17L, none of them are hot. Okay. The 17L, the 34, and the 17 all use the same magazine. Okay. That tells you their grips are the same length. Yep, they're all the same. You saw when I had them stacked up. They're the same. Okay. They're just longer. Same capacity. Okay. 17, 17L, and 34. And so then, of course, the 19 and the 26 have shorter magazines. Think about it. You could use the 17 magazine in the 19 or the 26, right? You've seen me do it. You could use the Glock 19 magazine, which is shorter, in the 19 or the 26. Put it in the 17, it's not going to work, not going to go up far enough. Okay, that's one of the cool things about them. And most people will carry a Glock 17 magazine like in an off pocket. If I'm carrying a Glock, it's kind of a why not, and I'm carrying an extra magazine, I'll always carry a Glock 17 magazine, either in my pocket or in a pouch or whatever it is. For one thing, it's higher capacity, but for another, it's just easier to manipulate. It's just easier to, make sure I seat it and everything, and it works. Or you could carry one of these. That will work in any of the Glocks, any of the Glock 9s, big old 33 rounder, except for the 43, different animal. Okay, it's a single stack. All right. So just wanted to kind of give you an overview of all of those. And I'm not even going to work the slide on that, so I'll put that back in. All these Glock 17 mags for those three. Again, 17L, 34, Glock 17, Glock 19, Glock 26. Now, that's about it, but let's talk just briefly about each one and the purpose it serves. And this is subjective, of course. Let's start with up here with the big one, the 17L. That's primarily for competition. Okay, it's a big old gun. One of the cool things about these, though, is they're all 9mm, the same thickness on the slide. And look at this old Phobos holster I've got on. Every single one of these will fit in that holster. Okay, that's a big old Glock, but it locks in. As long as you have an open bottom, it fits in there fine. Okay, and that's mainly competition. That could be used for other things. You might just want a 6-inch barrel. You might just want it for a ranged plinker. You may live somewhere where you have to have a 6-inch barrel, or you can't own the pistol or something. So it's fine. It's a great shooter, adjustable sights, and it's not as available, but they become available from time to time. 17L, you may not have seen one of those. You may have never held one. The slide is really not that heavy. It's cut out and it's milled differently, so the gun does not feel heavy. We have a video on that. You may not have seen it yet. You may not have posted it yet. Same thing here. You've got a longer slide, but it's still, obviously it's going to fit in there too, if the 17L will. And it actually clicks in, the trigger guard there. So it'll work. That gun, the 34, competition, it was designed for competition primarily. But again, it's the same size as a 1911, and I know that it's actually carried that in the 35, which is the 40 caliber, in the same size firearm, by state police in various states. It's actually adopted this or the 35, and it's a very popular gun. It seems large, but it's 1911 size, and I like it. It feels good. I haven't had this one all that long, so that's a pretty nifty gun. So for competition, special IPSC, IDPA, it's still considered a stock gun, a limited class it's called. Whereas this one has to be used in open class, unlimited class, okay? And once you get into unlimited class, now unless it's at a Glock match, you're competing against some really high-tech, compensated firearms and that sort of thing. So even though you've got this, you might still be outgunned, at least technically, okay? But it all comes down to the shooter mostly. All right, so both used for competition. This one begins to get a little more practical. In fact, it's called the Practical Tactical. And that one, you could carry that baby. That ain't trouble. It's not a bad pistol. I like it more and more. That's why I had to pick one of those up. All right. And so that one has a lot of versatility. And then, of course, the old 17, the original Glock. If you don't mind, again, the grip length on these, you can carry any one of these, and it's a good shooter. The original Glock, still used in competition in limited class, but not necessarily designed for competition. a very common size for a duty gun for, you know, so many police officers out there, either in 9mm or 40. Yeah, and the 40 it's called the Glock 22. But that size gun right there, that's the one that's so common in police holsters, and militaries are adopting this thing, you know. So no doubt about that. Nice gun. I've got a kind of Frankenstein on the grip there with some Talon grips and extra tape and everything that just fits my hand beautifully and feels good. It really does. So the 17, the first Glock. All right, then we move down to the 19. You know about that. That's another one that is probably the most common, I don't know, it might be the most common polymer pistol purchased, you know, if the numbers are even out there, if anybody publishes them. It's probably not even public. If among all the companies that make these sorts of firearms these days in 9mm, if you could look at the numbers, you know, Ruger and M&P and everybody, Smith & Wesson right down the line, how many mid-size 9mm are sold each year. I don't know what they are, if anybody does, but this probably leads the pack. The Glock 19, it's extremely popular, has been for a long time, and the size is great. It fits almost anywhere, and it's very, very shootable. You've seen our videos on all of these. You know what I'm talking about. So then moving on down, if you want something a little more concealable, the 26 really fits the bill there, because it's still really shootable. It feels good. It holds 10 in the magazine, even when it's flush. And you know, you get 15 in a flush magazine with the 19, but you get 10 rounds still, even with this little short one. And it feels a lot better than you would think, even without an extender. Okay, especially if you got some grips of some kind. Those are Talon grips. You can get you know, other brands, but you can get rubber, you can get the sandpaper type or whatever, and it feels fine. I carried one of these a long time, and I like it. I still carry this one, you know, quite often. And like I say, if I'm carrying it, I've got did I stick that magazine in my pocket? I've got a Glock 17 magazine I carry as a backup. Okay, so that's the advantage of that firearm over the 43. It'll still use those big magazines if you wanted to. It's really shootable. It really is. And I used to shoot one of those a lot, and I used to compete in the Glock matches with it. And if I can brag a second, I think I've told you all I won a gun with that. I finally took me 2 or 3 years to get there, but I won what you call subcompact class in a GSSF match, a Glock match, and it was really hard. A lot of people really work these things out, and I just really like this gun, and I was really working at getting good with it. I really wanted to get as good as I could with a small Glock, really shootable Glock. And that was kind of my objective there. And so I used to go shoot this darn thing in those GSF matches every year. And then the 43, so that's a great concealed carry. This is maybe one of the ultimate concealed carry pistols that has a little bit of capacity. You could carry it in a holster, works in that same holster, or even a pocket holster. You know, this you could carry in a pocket holster. It's a little bit fat, a little bit heavy. I have carried it in a pocket holster many times, especially in a cargo pocket, or cargo pants, or cargo shorts, you know, where you have bigger pockets. And then the 43, designed for concealed carry, of course, and it can be carried in the pocket, or it can be carried on the waist. Now this is a little loose in this holster because it's not designed. It's designed for the thicker ones. You can see the difference. But of course there's many holsters made for it. So most people probably carry this 43 single stack 9 in a belt holster, but it can be carried in a pocket holster. There's lots of good pocket holsters for it. It holds 6 in the magazine, or if you have a little extension of some kind, you can get a 7th round in the magazine. And great little gun. Very popular these days. Okay. So a little bit thinner than the rest of them. That's the big difference. It's a single stack, holds 6 or 7 rounds in a magazine. And so I don't have the Glock 18. I don't have any of the C models. I'm not sure they're still making those, you know, the ported models. They used to make the 17 C, 19 C, I think even the 26 maybe C, I don't know, where they have a port in the barrel and little cutouts. And I'm thinking they might have quit making those. I've never had that much interest in them, so I've never kept up with them. But so I don't have any C models, and you know, some of the little variations that have been there along the way in colors and everything else. But since we had the 17L, I thought I'd just line them all up and kind of show you the progression of them. It might be informative to some of you who are not as familiar with the model numbers and the models and what we're talking about when we mention all those various models. So that's kind of the Glock 9mm lineup. As far as I know, there's probably one I'm not thinking about, but it doesn't matter. I don't have it anyway. But these are the ones that are, I think, the most interesting and that you're probably aware of. You know what? I was going to shoot one more of them before we left. Let's shoot this big long one. Do I have a magazine? I bet I do. I do. You know what? I put a target up here like an idiot, and I wasn't even going to shoot it. So let's just shoot the thing. All right. Click, click, click. Oh, I had a bad round. Okay. Gun's empty though. So the Glock 17L, that's the one that's not mine. This one goes back to for an e-gunner auction. So you have either seen the video on this already or you will, okay, depending on when we post that. So anyway, Glock 9mm, I have grown to like the 9mm more over the years, and a lot of agencies, a lot of departments, police departments are going back to the 9. There's such great ammo now. There's not a lot of difference in terms of defensive rounds between, say 9, 40, 45. I know a lot of people would disagree with that. It would argue that point, but there really is not a lot of difference, and so the 9 just is a great choice. So anyway, a little bit of a overview there of some of the popular Glock 9mm. Life is good. Well, since I'm still here, let me go ahead and thank SDI, the Sonoran Desert Institute, for their support of the channel. If you're not familiar with them, they do distance learning. They're fully accredited. You can get a certification in gunsmithing there. You can even get an associate degree in firearms technology, and you can go on to do a lot of different things with that, if you're interested. So there's hands-on training and everything. So check the link in the description, sdi.edu, and check it out. I do a lot of work with veterans, so it might be of some interest to you. So check that out. And also keep in mind, while I've got you, while I'm still here, that we are on Full 30 now. All our videos are over on full30.com, and there's a link in the video descriptions to that as well. So watch us wherever you like to, YouTube, Full 30, better yet, both. And keep in mind that we have the Hickok 45 and Son channel. John does a lot of things over there. I do some things over there, some Hickok history, different things. We've got the Hickok 45 Facebook page. We do a lot on that. There's 400,000 people following that. I hope you're one of them. The Hickok 45 and Son Facebook page. So we've got a lot going on there. Got the Gun Culture Radio show that John does, and I'm on that show sometimes. Over on Hickok 45 and Son. So just wanted to make you aware of everything that's going on in case you might not be familiar with it, okay? And you'd better start getting familiar with it, because if you don't, I'm going to come to your house and have a chat with you. You don't want that to happen. And if I do, you'd better have good donuts and good coffee waiting for me, okay?